Welcome to the Rethink Leadership podcast, available on all platforms including YouTube if you prefer to watch. My name is Jeremy Blaine, CEO of Performance Works International, Executive Director of the Transformational Leadership Acceleration Institute, and Managing Partner of Diversity Talent. My aim is to bring insights from leaders, experts, and highly talented professionals from around the world. Insights, stories, and advice from the front lines of modern leadership to engage, inspire, and mobilize progress back in the workplace. Every episode is a learning opportunity for us all. The Rethink Leadership podcast also supports charities around the world. Each episode is in aid of a cause chosen by my guests, and to date I'm proud to say we've supported over 60 global and local great causes. Welcome to Sanjeev Loomba, today's guest for the Rethink Leadership podcast. He's a leadership expert, innovator, founder of Valuepreneurship, and author of The Ninth Gear, where he dives into the discipline with very much a why, what, and how to approach. This is all about value-impact leadership. With over 30 years of leading global corporations, transforming hundreds of organizations and thousands of people, Sanjeev's experientially honed methods have brought growth and exceptional results and performance to individuals and businesses, from across blue chips to SMEs. The powerful combination of an insight into people's emotional makeup, as well as business management and leadership, helps him to achieve transformational shifts in mindset, performance, personal and business success. He's turned around companies from across varied industry sectors and puts people at the center of this success, starting with those at the top. And he's achieved phenomenal success, with measured EBIT shifts of up to 27% and more, and it all starts with Valuepreneurship. We deep dive into why this is important, what it means in reality, and how to accelerate value-impact leadership at all levels. Hello, Sanjeev. Thanks for joining me. Please tell us about yourself, your business, and something not many people may know about you.
Hi, Jeremy. Great to be speaking to you. Thanks very much for inviting me. About myself, I think at the age of 21, I realized that I had a disease, and I call it potentialitis. And I just had, as a junior auditor and training to be a chartered accountant, I used to spend too much of my time speaking to my clients about, hey, look, there's a new product you could do here, or there's a new market you could approach here, or there's so much potential in your processes here. I just saw it. It was like a disease. So that's the thing that really drove me, and the debit and credit scenario, it just frustrated me. And my managers used to get very angry because they used to say, Sanjeev, that's not what we're paid for. We're paid to, here's the blue pen, here's the red pen, take and bash invoices. And that's what I was supposed to do. So that frustration made me quit the day I qualified. I mean, literally the day I qualified. And then I went on to do an MBA because the whole quest for potential, and I'd named my company, which for several years has been called the Real Potential. For the last 27 years or whatever, I named it at that time, at the age of 21, because but then I went into industry. I mean, after my MBA, because the temptation was, of course, to work for a consulting firm and things like that, coming out of Cranfield. But I insisted. Then, and here's the thing, Jeremy, I don't deem it that I have any right to stand in front of anyone and say all of these things, whether it's about strategy, about leadership, about the mind, about customer engagement, whatever I'm speaking on. It is not, I don't have the right to say anything unless I haven't had the opportunity to make it happen myself directly, which is why I chose, as opposed to a consulting career, to go into corporations. As finance director, marketing director, strategy director, business economics head, etc., for different, and then CEO, different companies, different countries, different industries. And that career was actually designed to do what I've been doing for the last 25 odd years, which is bringing this understanding that the world is looking at business and work the wrong way round. And I'm saying that entrepreneurship has to, must, and is in my eyes, evolving to what I call valuepreneurship. So yeah, that's what I do, and I speak on teach people develop strategies of companies, organizations, individuals, leaders, and so on. That's my gig in life.
Well, first of all, I must say that you have just diagnosed my disease, potentialitis. I now have a name. I now have a name. It seems we have a similar DNA, Sanjeev. Most certainly, and I totally get the point you were making at the end there around you've got to have that experience. You've got to have that experience of experimentation, of failing a bit, of succeeding a bit to be then credible to
Cool.
consult and do it with others.
Sure.
So thank you very much for that. What about telling me about something about yourself that not many people may know?
No, well, I'm a musician, by the way. I perform, I sing. My wife and we perform ancient Urdu and Persian poetry, and we set it to semi-classical into music, but with Western influences inside it, almost Mediterranean, to be able to open it up to the wider audience. The philosophy, the understanding. Actually, interestingly enough, someone said to me, "Wow, man, you've got such different fields. You're doing this poetry and singing and so on, and the album is out there, and then you're teaching strategy and leadership." And I said, actually, there is no difference, because in that understanding of that level of poetry, I mean, some of the poems are, if we have some more time, another time, I'll go into some of it. But just the first poem on our album begins, I wouldn't say it in Urdu, but it is saying that, it's talking about love, and love reaches a level, and he talks about love. This is an ancient poem, about 600 years old, from a grand master poet, that love reaches such a level that there is no more an existence in that story about you and me. It's transcended you and me, and there is lack of any sense of you and me. And this, can you now transport that into leadership and transport that into corporations? Because one of the biggest, the scourge of the earth today, whether it's in organizations or countries or teams or individuals, is disunity. Would you agree with me?
I would agree with you.
It's disunity. I mean, a finance director is warring with marketing director. This happened to a client company of mine sitting in the boardroom that I was about a week ago. Countries are at war with each other. There's divisions going at political levels, all the time, whether it's, this is not a political case, but whether you're a Brexiteer or a non-Brexiteer, but it then divides you into those camps. Disunity. But we have to lose the sense of you and me, and only then we will find the common purpose. And this is not theory. This is not a moral lecture. That's the important thing. I can nail it to you what that means by giving you an example of bringing a 900-man team and a 1,200-man team to work together in collaboration, just pre-COVID. So it has to happen.
Yeah, it sounds like that's about finding the we out of all of that, isn't it? And doing it together and bringing it together. But I have to go back and say that's the best hidden talent that I've had from any guest so far. And I think one of the first, there may be another, but I think one of the few that has actually released an album. So congratulations for that. So maybe that is a chat for another time for sure. But I want to pick up on something that you talked about right in your introduction, which was valuepreneurship. Could you please explain what is value impact leadership as you then explain it further, and why it's so important as we consider it this year and as we look ahead to the 2030s?
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely. The thing is this, that we are looking at work, life, business, organizations, whatever we are doing, the wrong way around. We're looking at through the me lens, me. I want to. So look at the difference between an entrepreneur and valuepreneur. I'll give you an example. An entrepreneur says, what product or services can I make? How much can I sell? How much money can I make? Fair enough. Nothing wrong with that. It's brought us up to here. pretty well. And they talk about shareholder value and about creating more wealth and so on. And then that's absolutely fine. But evolving that to what's required now in the new world and what's required ahead of here is what I call the Valuepreneur. The Valuepreneur does exactly, I'll give you an example in a minute, but does the same job, but looks at the world from the other way around, and says, who's out there? That's the starting point, not what do I have? And this is the mistake we make because we are experts. We're all experts. We're brilliant. We have technologies, we have knowledge, we have skills, we have education. And we start pushing that and take ownership of that and think that that's the be all and end all. And then try and slot that into anywhere we can in a kind of desperation mode to try and win as much as I can. The Valuepreneur is oblivious to that. The Valuepreneur says, who's out there? And what's the value impact on them from whatever is changing around them? And I calculate value. And I'm not talking about added value, by the way, Jeremy. Added value is a bribe. It has to be thrown in the bin. It does nothing but bring your brand shooting down. Added value is a little bit more value, a little bit more service, a little bit more product for no more money. And it turns you into a beggar, frankly. So value, and in the book, the first 110 pages out of the 550 pages is dedicated to understanding what is value and what is valuepreneurship. But coming back to the question, the Valuepreneur says, who's out there? What's changing in their world? And what does that generate in terms of value, calculatable value? And then and only then sets about saying, how can I serve? How can I use my talent, my skills, my knowledge, my products, my services, my whatever, my resources to be able to service that value? So just to give you a quick example, may I? I was doing a program the examples are, I think a time limitation is our only thing. Otherwise, I'm so excited to share. I was doing a program. Let me give you this one for a group of 17 very, very talented youngsters for one of the top 5 IT companies, and we were talking about client engagement, and we were talking about communication and all the kind of and strategic thinking and all this kind of stuff. I was in Frankfurt. These guys are from all over Europe. They literally were from 10 different countries in Europe. And there we were sitting in Frankfurt on the Main River and discussing this. And I turned to one young lady and I said, Clara, what project are you on? What are you doing? And she said, I'm on a project developing digital applications. And I yawned. I said, okay, fine. And then, because this is not interesting. And then I said, now, who for? And she said, for banks, for banking clients. And I yawned again, but it was a better answer. And then I asked her a question. And of course, you know what I'm going to say, because, you're drenched in this field. And we have potentialitis, both of us. And that is, I asked the question, Clara, why? And she had no answer except to say, well, I don't know what you mean, Sanjeev. I'm working for this company. We're one of the top 5. I've got banking clients. I've developed an expertise and I've been educated in data management and application development. And that's what I'm doing. I'm developing digital applications. And I said, Clara, it's time for lunch. And it was. And at lunch, I was having lunch with her Uber boss, her boss's boss, who is a client of mine and I'm very fond of. And we were sitting at lunch and I said, Klaus, what is Clara working on? And even from him, it took me a lot of effort to get it out. But I did. Came back from lunch and I said, Clara, do you know what you're working on? Your client is sorry, I won't name it, one of the big South African banks. Okay, they found a new market segment, which is poor farmers and tradespeople in the villages of South Africa. They don't have credit lines. To buy his fertilizer and feed, he has to do a 2-day perilous journey with the cash that he's stored up under his pillow, go to Joburg, buy the feed and come back. And that's 4 days of yield. Your app solves that. It's livelihood. You're bringing him 4 days of yield. Did you even know that? And of course, the answer was no. And you know what? That evening, they invited me to dinner. We were sitting in Sachsenhausen having a dinner and eating our schnitzel in a lovely German restaurant. And all 17 of them, they didn't. Jeremy, there was a buzz. This sounds like a bit of a story, but this is the kind of stuff that goes on all the time. And they were fired up. No one wanted to talk about, I'm an AI expert, I'm a data expert, I do agile, I do waterfall. No one wanted to talk about this. Everyone wanted to talk about the net impact that they are bringing currently in their projects to the end person, and what they want to do in the future in terms of that sets your purpose. And 2 days, just to finish it off, 2 weeks later, I got an email from Clara saying, Sanjeev, nothing has changed in my work. Nothing has changed in my work. Everything has changed in how I'm engaging with it. And she said, the spring in my step is there. I'm waking up in the morning because my mind, when I'm sitting on my keyboard, is not on what code I'm writing, but it is obsessed with what is the end impact of this code. It's a no-brainer. Am I saying something new?
Me, I like you say, I mean, we both have this potentialitis. And for me, when I play back what you're talking about, my summary of it is moving from the what we do to why we do it. And this is the journey to embrace how we impact the communities within which we serve, how we become forces for the greater good by doing our job in a different way. And therefore, how Clara put it, how I do it is quite different. So when actually, just a quick follow-up question on that, Sanjeev.
Mm-hmm.
So when people like Clara really embrace the understanding of what you're talking about, they really get it. And when that is multiplied across the teams that you're working with, what are the broader benefits internally as well as
Wow.
externally that can be realized?
What a beautiful question. And I'll give you an example. The gentleman who has written the foreword in my book, Martin Dadds, has been a client of mine for 4 times as CEO of different organizations. And I'm going back to the first organization. It was a huge digital marketing kind of organization, very, very big, a prominent name in the world. And he was heading that organization up for all of Europe. And we did a strategic transformation. And the transformation was to move, and it was proper strategy, right? I mean, that's what I do. It's right from thinking strategically about your customers, your market, calculating their values, then designing the responses through your products, services, whatever, people, resources, etc., and then the financials too. So what happens is that everything that every individual is doing is directly related back to the calculated values and identified and visible and shared understanding of the value. This is valuepreneurial culture across the organization. And so you can identify that. I've got a lovely story for that in a minute for you. But just to go back, so we did this over about 6 months. It was a full transformation. 80 projects were identified. We did them. We implemented them, etc., etc. 6 months later, after the implementation, I was sitting with Martin, and we were having a lunch in Brussels. And Martin said, Sanjeev, not only has the EBITDA and the sales just gone in north, there's no question about that. We can see it in front of us. But something else is happening. There's silence in my organization. It's like and silence in the very positive sense. because before you'd have a customer urgency that I need this done, and then the plant was at salespeople's necks to say, you guys are selling things that we can't deliver. Finance was saying, hold on, stop it, I can't give you any more resources, any more machines, and marketing was saying, guys, I need to go out and sell. And everyone was at each other's necks because they were all in their world. And now the conversations had turned from I am in the plant, you need to give me proper forecasts, into sitting down with sales and saying, hey guys, that client that you guys are currently working on, let me understand what's their, I call this value onions. It's all described in the book, but what's their value onion? And suddenly the language had changed. And they said, well, this is their priority, this is that, this is that. And then plant saying, okay, I can put the priority, shift it onto that point. If you can allow me to take it off from here, then I can manage my capacity very well. And suddenly there was collaboration, conversations, cooperation, communication. And in that, Jeremy, here's what happened. When you start from there, you innovate, you create. You are creative from value, not from what you do. You see, I make a big distinction between innovation, invention, and inconvenience. They all start with the I-N. The Concorde was not an innovation in my eyes. Absolutely stunning, beautiful. What a piece of engineering. What a beautiful aircraft. But where is Mark II and Mark III? It's 19 years ago that it went out of service. Where is the supersonic airliner? Why? Because there was no real value of the market that it was serving. Otherwise, they would have developed it. There wasn't a market to carry 100 passengers uncomfortably but royally between London and New York and take 3 hours off the time. It was just like that. That was an invention, a brilliant invention, but it was an innovation comes from there. Then creativity and innovation. Inconvenience, of course, is when we really push the boat out to saying, I want to do it for myself, like Apple, who I like, but now with their iPhone having taken out the earphone socket out so that they can sell their earpods at $100 or whatever, is an inconvenience, because I want to hear it not through my earpods, but through my Bose and Wilkins headset or whatever. So that's what happens. Quietness, collaboration, cooperation, innovation, and creativity. Oh my God. And I see this time and time again. I'm saying this with incredible humbleness, modesty, and gratitude. Please understand that. Sharing with you and your leaders and the listeners that guys, it is easier than we realize. And I'm by not demeaning it, because hundreds of organizations and thousands of people down the line, these examples won't stop, but many of them are in there in the book.
Yeah, and one thing that comes across loud and clear is what you started with here, which is the valuepreneurial culture. It becomes the way we do things around here, and it seems to be a very powerful concept that people understand. They understand that calculated value. They understand how they impact others within their own communities internally, and externally. And that silence seems to come through from understanding. So I really appreciate and understand that journey and some of the impact that it's had. And of course, then quite obviously in some ways, you see those additional benefits come there from that enlightenment. It's more collaboration, more communication. But I'm guessing that there are times when this is not embraced by everybody, that things can go wrong. And when they do, I'd like to know, when you're not there, who can step in and turn it around again and start leading this forward so that we can get back on track.
Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful. So to lead into the answer, so I'll first of all take you a little bit around and give another comment, and then come back to this question that when you're not there, how do we carry it forward? But before that, can we just take this example of the silence? And I know you picked up on that, the silence so beautifully, that the silence in the organization is a reflection of the silence in the mind of every individual. when it doesn't work, look. There's no such thing as an organization. It doesn't exist. We got to wake up. This is a delusion. There's no such thing as an organization. It is only a collection of individuals who happen to have come together on a common platform for a period of time, hopefully with the same goals to achieve. So it is, at the end of the day, an individual. People don't work for organizations. People work for themselves. Wakey. The moment we wake up to this, so the silence that I'm talking about, that comes about in the organization, I work to build and bring out that silence in our individual minds, because our minds are full of fear. I hope I get it. I hope my boss likes it. I hope my client, I hope I get the contract. I hope they give me the extra resources. What if I don't, I'm not able to perform? If this noise is going on in there, is your productivity up or low? So in line with this organizational silence, we need to work on the individual silence. And I'm very careful and cautious to do that. And this, call it mindfulness or whatever, but it's far, far more practical and applied than that. Now, with that in mind, to come back to your point, when does it work? When does it not work? And I'll stick my neck out and say that my experience, if I look at in all the organizations where 60% of the times it works, 40% of the times it doesn't work. And it's actually quite clear. There doesn't seem to be too much middle way. And you're going to ask me, okay, so I understand when it works, which is a 60%. You've given me an example of Martin and his organization. So when does it not work? When it doesn't work is exactly as you said, that we've implemented, I've put through. Okay, I mean, I'll work with an organization for as long as they want me to hang around, and to support them. But it is the dedication from the top of everyone gets it, by the way. Here's the interesting thing. To date, and I'm saying this again with incredible humbleness, modesty, is there anything, and I'm asking your listeners, is there anything I've said in the last 20 minutes or so which is refutable? And no one does. I teach this stuff every day of my life, or teach or develop, organize. No one refutes it. So everyone gets it. So then what's the difference? And that is the resilience, the dedication to actually making it happen. There are hugely talented people out there, but you've got to be a Roger Federer to say, I'm not going to let go. And every single day, I'm going to do 5,000 forearms, even though I've won the most, trophies in the world. And that level of dedication. So it's the dedication to say, I'm going to make it happen. And then you follow through with the teams, with absolutely every individual. And where they get sidetracked by the fire that's going on, and there always is, the firefighting and the urgencies and changing nature of their own world and their markets, the changing nature of their own world and the market, if they follow the principle and the way that I'm talking about strategy, you'll always be ahead of the game. But what happens is that we have to... May I share an example of this? If we have the time. Okay, I was doing a full strategy transformation for a big wine marketing organization. Their claim to fame is, and absolutely right, that 1 out of every 5 bottles of French wine that's drunk in this country came out of their hands. Now, they were a good company. A very good company, extremely knowledgeable about wine, but very, very dependent on the huge chains, Tesco, Sainsbury's, etc. And I was a non-executive director on the board, and I was saying, guys, we have to move our strategy. Who is actually your customer? And they said it's Tesco and Sainsbury's. I said, no, that's a channel. And then we calculated the values of their end market and their customers. And the questions were, what would it take for someone to go from a 7-pound bottle to a 9-pound bottle? And they said, actually, not much, if they knew what was in the bottle. Now, just taking that one statement, if they knew what, we completely reshaped a strategy, which I won't go into to protect their safety, but it was effectively in summary, about getting people in their homes to be able to taste, a set of 5 or so on, with a lot of enjoyment, and watching it on the TV to say, yeah, try this, have you tried that, can you taste this and that. So a lot of fun. And then they order their cases from what they... So it was a great strategy, which was moving them beyond the reliance on the channel. Yes, we're going to do it. Yes, this is the one. Yes, this is the one. Lo and behold, the dragging of the feet happened. And one fine day, I got an urgent call. Hey, Sanjeev, help. Why? Because we've been delisted by Tesco and our world has just collapsed. Why? Because the procrastination and the urgencies, that there is no one's fault. He's a brilliant guy. I'll tell you very, very strongly that he's then come through and then started a brilliantly successful wine business, which is incredible. But that's what happens.
I can understand that. And the way that you started as well, I thought was a neat way of looking at it. There's a collection of individuals out there, so we've got to impact the person. And to use that wine analogy, you've got to know what's in the person bottle, and then try and unbottle that in that person so they have the understanding, which of course starts at the top. But you've got to build that momentum to create those wins. And if you don't, then the impact, as you've clearly shown, is you may even go out of business. So that's the stakes are high, right? Well, we're coming to the end of this, but for many listening and tuning into this will be quite a new concept, I would imagine, one that is understandable and one that I'm sure that many would want to embrace. So perhaps I know, and I would definitely recommend that they read your book about that, and we'll reinforce that at the end. But maybe to give some quick tips to go forward, Sanjeev, what's your blueprint for success in terms of getting started, in terms of building that momentum that you've seen in other organizations, and creating the early wins that everybody can feel very satisfied by?
Yeah, beautiful. There's if you go on my website, and as you scroll down on the landing page, or on the 3rd page, there's something I call the Valuepreneurship Challenge. And I highly recommend that everyone listening, it'll take you 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And it's quite a cool and neat thing. It's a fun exercise, but it actually, when you answer these 6 or so questions, it takes about 5 minutes about your organization. And then it gives you your Valuepreneurship score. But not only gives you the score and the range so if you entered in the range of 300 to 350, then this is where you are. This is what you need to do in summary. So it's a fun way of doing it. So have a go at that, because it'll start to trigger and get you to think how your organization is, how valuepreneurial is your organization. When I ask this question to CEOs, and I regularly do, first of all, no one says to me, "Oh, Sanjeev, what's valuepreneurship?" No one has asked me that, even though I haven't talked about it. They always answer about 40%. I said, "Oh, really? So 40." So in other words, 40% of your organization, 40% of the time, 40% of your people in 40% of situations are obsessively engaged with the end value of whom they're serving, and then they're doing stuff. Then they say, well, maybe no, it's not. Maybe it's not 40, and it tumbles down to 20, and with very honest people down to 10. So the answer to your question, how to start, is first of all to reshape your own thinking from entrepreneurial to valuepreneurial. I'm saying this again with modesty and humbleness, that I haven't held back in anything in the book. It's actually all this, and it's step by step by step. This is the other thing. So it'll guide you in your thinking. Then apply it to your organization and to people and your team around you, and change the conversation. And the book is in 5 sections. The first section is all about the culture of value, and then the models of value and what it is, and how you calculate it. Then the second section is all about how do you plan your business, your strategy, your work, step by step around this. And then, so the hard techniques of it. Then the third section is all about the mind. that if you haven't silenced the mind, all of that strategy goes to useless. The fourth section is all about leadership and how to apply value leadership in yourself and your organization. And then the fourth section is all about unification, relationship building, and so on. So in that flow, you get everything that you need.
Right, really great. And particularly, I would advise everybody tuning in, get onto that website and get that 5-minute challenge done. What a great place to start. We'll make sure that that's on the screen at the end for those watching on YouTube, and we'll make sure we post that out as well when we get this episode out there, of course. But the key things that came across for me there is that sort of obsessiveness, obsessively engaging in the end value that we deliver. That really speaks to me. That does, Sanjeev. And reframing how you do that, reframing from that entrepreneurial thinking to the valuepreneurial thinking is something that also talks to very much how I would operate, how I see my place as a business leader and what my business stands for, as much as what I'm trying to achieve, of course. And I can't agree with you more. In many organizations, it starts with mindset, perhaps, but it also starts with changing the conversation. So there are definitely going to be many who are listening to this who say, right, I want to make a start on this. So could you please tell us, Sanjeev, how they get hold of your book, and how do people get in touch with you or get onto your website and find out more?
Sure. Joy to answer that. So it's called The Ninth Gear. So it's on Amazon, of course. You can look at it. Either search Sanjeev Loomba or The Ninth Gear. And then, of course, it's in Waterstones and Barnes and Noble and all these websites. So you can look at and it'll be a joy to be in touch with folks, and anything that I can help with and bringing that shift around you or your environment. I'm there for you. You can look at the website, which is valuepreneurship.com. And at the bottom of that is the contact details, or join in on LinkedIn. Find me, Sanjeev Loomba, on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Right. Well, really, for being the first listener to this episode, I have really enjoyed it. Lots of insight there, great examples, and great tips for progress. Sanjeev Loomba, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. It's been a joy.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blaine. Please like, comment, and support us on your favourite platform, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can watch as well as listen to each episode.